Back in August 2017, I published a video called Keeping Calm When Dealing with Leftism, Practical Politics, in which I used the analogy of a one-sided translucid wall to explain that while we, on the non-left, can and do see and know the left, the reverse is not true. Well, as it turns out, my observations from Practical Politics are now part of a study that even the Huffington Post has to acknowledge. See? I told you ideas have consequences. Let's explore. Hello everyone and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Alright, although it may seem that way, the purpose of this video is not to brag that I have again brought out something that later on became a mainstream topic. Although I do need to mention that it's the third time it happens in terms of big ideas. First it was the deep state, then the intermarium, and now this. But bragging aside, this is glorious. Not for me, but for the success of the ideas broadcasted here and then disseminated by each and one of you out there who derive value from the work of this operation. And, as said, this is about the success of our ideas and much more than about me or my team's success and fame as people. Those can wait, or never come. That's fine. So, the Huffington Post published something truly shocking. It published an honest article about the plethora of blind spots on the left. Sure, it didn't call it explicitly that way, but it's basically as if someone saw my videos and decided to make an article. So, the Huffington Post titles Jordan Peterson and the Media: How One-Sided Reporting Can Limit Critical Thinking. And it's a remarkably good article, a bit long, but it's worth reading. So, quote, "Considering only one viewpoint limits our understanding of just about any topic, let alone complex, controversial, and sometimes emotionally and politically charged subjects such as gender, race, political correctness, and freedom of speech. Yet the media's coverage of Jordan Peterson's proposed website did just that. It presented, for the most part, a single point of view. The website's purpose, according to Peterson, would be to use artificial intelligence to identify university courses with postmodern content, including classes in gender and ethnic studies. The coverage we analyzed mostly supported the views of Peterson's critics, that his proposed site would promote fear and intimidation. While this could indeed happen, only presenting this viewpoint is biased and can be detrimental to public discourse around these controversial topics. Here are two examples of how bias and faulty reasoning support the media's slant. The anchoring effect. This term refers to people's tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information they're offered when making judgments or decisions. Sonny Geneseo, a psychology professor, Margaret W. Motlin, writes in the textbook Cognition that initial information is called the anchor. In the 4 articles we analyzed on Peterson, the anchor is the main point of view expressed in the headlines and opening paragraphs. His critics' opinion that the proposed website would promote fear and intimidation. People who are reading about Peterson and his proposed website for the first time, or even those who have some knowledge, may rely too heavily on this initial viewpoint and may not take any new information impartially. This wouldn't be the case for all readers. Some may already have an opinion about Peterson, for example, but it could for many. The strawman fallacy. This is a logical fallacy that occurs when an opponent's point of view is distorted or misrepresented, in order to make it easier to refute, according to Stanford's Encyclopedia of Philosophy. For example, CBS cites University of Toronto physics professor A.W. Peat as saying, quote, "One thing I think is dangerous about Peterson is he claims to know the one true way towards the future. This is presumably in reference to the following comment from Peterson, quote, "You can consider this a prophecy from me if you want. I'm afraid that this continual pushing by radical left-wingers is going to wake up the right wing, and by doing so, violence emerges," close quote. Now, Peterson may be making a prediction, but this is not the same as claiming to know the one true way towards the future, and no evidence is provided of him making such a claim. Representing his arguments this way makes them easier to refute, though, because it's obvious that no human can know the one true way towards the future. Pete's quote supports the slant of the article in two ways. One, it discredits Peterson, although it's based on faulty reasoning, and two, the article contains quotes from Peterson's critics, such as Pete's, and none from his supporters. Note that just because the articles we analyzed were biased in favor of Peterson's critics, this bias doesn't mean the criticism of his proposed websites aren't valid. It just means that as a reader, you're not getting the whole story when reading this coverage. Why does this slant matter? Whether you support Peterson's views or oppose them, the media's slanted coverage brings up a problem that the Heterodox Academy calls the loss of or lack of viewpoint diversity. Specifically, the group conducts research on the diversity of viewpoints, or lack thereof, in American universities. News outlets contribute to the viewpoint diversity problem when they primarily support one perspective, as our slant ratings demonstrate in the coverage of Peterson's proposed website. According to the Knife's balance ratings, which factor into our total slant score along with sourcing, CBS's article was 97% slanted, while the Globe and Mail's was 83% slanted. The higher the percentage, the more it supports one viewpoint. To think about this another way, imagine a widely accepted norm or belief, perhaps one concerning gender or ethnicity, that might be deemed politically incorrect to question. How comfortable do you feel publicly questioning this norm, even if you have a well-reasoned and well-intentioned argument? If you don't, how likely is this to promote a diversity of viewpoints? Not likely. Yet bringing diverse viewpoints to bear on social, intellectual, philosophical, legal, and moral problems is important, the Heterodox Academy says, because it is likely to enhance the quality of the scholarship that bears on those issues. This is not to deny that some viewpoints may promote harm, marginalization, or discrimination. Also, some points of view have more scientific or practical merit than others. But there can be negative consequences when people don't question accepted norms, even ones that are maintained out of political correctness or social justice. As English philosopher John Stuart Mill said on Liberty, he who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that. The Knife encourages people to seek out alternative viewpoints to improve their critical thinking, and gain a deeper understanding of their own beliefs. They may even modify some along the way." Close quote. Now, admittedly, this is an article imported from a partner, or at least a pre-agreed organization, but nevertheless, such an article on the Huffington Post is still surprising. What we don't know is whether the comments on it have been purposefully deleted, or is it really the case that nobody commented. At the moment of this recording, I can see only my own comment, and the app says there are 2 comments, so maybe the other one was hidden for spam reason. That's plausible. But it's still a bit astonishing that nobody commented for days on end. Nevertheless, such an article appearing on Huffington Post is relevant. And it is relevant not just because it's true, but also because it's another opportunity to remind everyone watching that in war, those who know both themselves and the enemy stand the best chance of winning. We get to know leftism very well. Only if we try really, really hard can we indeed escape knowing leftism. That's why I insist a lot on knowing ourselves, because that is where the non-left has been failing in the last 2 decades. The left has been successful because we didn't know ourselves, and because we fought amongst each other quite a lot. But if we get to know ourselves better and continue doing what we're doing in terms of knowing, and yes, keeping up with the left, it's only a matter of time until we're going to start making more and more difference. We're already making a difference, but soon enough, we'll start winning little wars, not just a battle here and there. And I'm not just saying this just for the morale uplift. I'm saying this because when I started being politically active, for instance publicly questioning feminism or the European Union or many other quote-unquote established and self-evident truths, doing that was unheard of. I think I said this story before. In 2005, I was called mentally insane for saying that the European Union will enter into a never-ending crisis chain, which will end with the European Union's collapse. That's when I also made the 2025 prediction, by the way. In 2005, saying that out loud was outrageous, unthinkable. All the experts were in full agreement that EU complete integration was not just a given, but an irreversible process. They were falling for the myth of inevitability. Well, 12 years down the line, things are much closer to my prediction than the so-called experts' prediction. And this did not happen because I'm a bloody genius or whatnot. I'm none of that thing. I just know my position very well, in addition to knowing the opposition's position very well. Oftentimes much better than many individual representatives of my opposition. The same is true with feminism. When I first publicly questioned feminism in 2008, I wasn't even called a misogynist. There was just utter silence. Many could not believe that I had just said that feminism might be either a mental disorder or a well-connected hate movement. When around a dozen people were saying in 2010, 2011 on YouTube that there will come a time when open scrutiny of feminism will be the norm, even those who wanted that to happen were saying, "Come on, Lucian, you're being too optimistic. This will not happen in our lifetimes." Well, we're still not there yet, but in the current year, there's so much that even academics in Sweden have to now acknowledge it and admit it, albeit begrudgingly, that they're no longer the only voice on the stage when it comes to this topic. The takeaway is this: things can be done. Patience is a virtue, and while progress is happening probably much slower than we would want it to happen, it is important from time to time to notice that it is happening. And mind you, this is not just because Huff Po published this, it's also because they quote the Heterodox Academy in a very serious manner. That is quite huge, because many academics who keep quiet about things do read Huff Po, and they'll go to the Heterodox Academy, thus expanding the network of dissenters. Because while the intention was not to be an agitprop and subversion operation, this is exactly what the Heterodox Academy is. It is a way into the inner circle. I don't think it will be particularly successful, but if they manage to weaken, even for a little bit, the grip of the left over the academe, just enough for the rest of us to red pill more and more students and work to defund and starve the academe of our shekels, they, the Heterodox Academy, will have already achieved more than expected. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to point out. So with all of that being said, thank you all for watching, thank you for your consistent and generous support. If you derive any value from my work, please do consider throwing a shekel. Do subscribe to my social media, links in the low bar, and I'll see you all soon on Freedom Alternative.